Hey, what's happening guys? Reaper here and I'm back with another painting video. And this time we're doing the Storm Champion from Barbarians the Invasion. I managed to find all the names so I know what they are now. But this is the yellow champion, basically. And I primed it in a Cobra paint, like I used with the red one. This is, I believe it's called Melee. M-E-L-E. But it's a nice, it's not quite demonic yellow, but it's more darker, more vibrant as such. And it's a nice touch so I can highlight up to demonic yellow. Anyway, we're like halfway through what I've already started, but I'm just quickly covering all the flesh of this model with Barbarian Flesh. Because I want, being a Storm Champion, I'm assuming it could be quite pale. So I've gone Barbarian Flesh and I'm going to highlight up from that later on. But now there's a lot of flesh on this model. I'm just trying to be careful not to touch any of that cloak, because the cloak is what I want to keep yellow. Then we move on to Oak Brown as the base coat for all leather parts. And this woman has, the weapons are weird, these ones. They're like, it looks like it should be a whip, but I feel like it should be chain. So I've done, when I get onto it, I'll do a chain whip. So it's sort of got the silver going around, which is quite a cool weapon, to be fair. Like, I would happily, if I was going to war with someone, have two chain. Once all the Oak Brown's done, I move on to Banshee Brown, do her hair, and I eventually go on to do all the fur as well that she's got. There's a fur collar around her neck, and she's got fur on her boots. The hair and the fur, obviously, the fur stays Banshee Brown, the hair gets an extra highlight, it goes up to almost white, because I figured it's called a Storm Champion, I might as well sort of give her a bit of a model from Storm from X-Men, because it'll be a little something different from normal, which is what we need, really. Because I find when I'm painting things like this for Kame, everyone looks like they're from the same place, just kind of pointless. But these are supposed to be dotted around a country, so I've added a little bit of difference into all of them. Well, I will add a little bit of difference into all of them. There's only 2 of them done so far. Next up will be the green champion. I've already forgotten their name. I'll remember it for the video. That's the end of the Banshee Brown. Then we move on to the metal parts, where I just quickly cover over her weapons, which they look simple to paint, but they're not, because it loops down and around her leg and that. You gotta be really careful when you're getting into those details. But other than that, there's not masses of metal on her, which I thought was strange considering the Dusk champion had a lot of metal. He seems more nimble, and I suppose with whips you're at range, so you don't really need that much armor. But she's got these weapons here, and then she's got a necklace and a, what looks like a belt buckle essentially on her waist. that's the gunmetal done. I'll move on to oak brown, which I've already used oak brown, but I just go back over the one I've done and add some extra bits in. I wasn't sure what color I wanted at the time, but I've just gone straight for all of the leather parts are now just oak brown, as I feel like it didn't need many colors on this model to make it look good, which is the good thing about models such as this. If it's simplistic enough, it looks really good with only a few colors, which I find is part of the problem with Games Workshop's models. There's so much detail. Here we go. I'm going over the hair now with the Brain Matter Beige, which is an off-white from Army Painter. One of my newer colors. It just sort of makes the hair pop out a bit more compared to the furs around her, well, around her boots and neck. Okay, that's all it needed for that. And then we move on to Demonic Yellow, which, if you're following this tutorial, definitely do this part. But after I do all this, I give it a wash and it absolutely ruins it. If I was to do it again, which I will do for the other models, is do this part, but then add a step in between, which is more a mixture of Desert Yellow and Demonic Yellow. So you've got that highlight chain going up, because the wash utterly ruins this cape and it takes me forever to fix it, and I'm still not 100% happy with how it came out. Then we move on to the highlights of the flesh. I wanted to do the highlights before I done the wash this time, if it makes much of a difference to what's going on. It looks like I missed the camera a little bit when doing this as well, but I'm just got the elven flesh out and I'm just going over some of the raised edges, but quite a thick amount. I wanted to just leave the barbarian flesh in the recesses only. I want her to look pale. There you go. As you can see, I've just left that barbarian flesh in the recesses only, because it makes it pop a bit more. And then I've moved on to leather brown to do essentially the same thing, but for all the leather parts. Leaving the oak brown in the recesses and then just highlighting up a little bit before I start on all the washes. Then we move on to the wash stage, which flesh wash over all the skin, as that's what it's meant for. I do want to get Army Painter's mid-brown wash as well. It looks like a lighter version of flesh wash. So I feel like if I use them two, I could probably get a nicer colour when doing pale skin. I find flesh wash is more aimed at the tanned skin, which is what generally people use when painting skin on miniatures. But I've got an ogre to do soon. I want to do it really pale. So I want a pale brown wash. But that's it for the first wash. Then I move on to the massive mistake of look at that thing. It just utterly ruins the entire cape that I've done. But this is Army Painter's strong tone, which if you're following along, don't do this part. Or do strong tone, but don't touch the cape. Because I use strong tone on all the leather parts as well. And the metal. As that will create that much more depth that you want. And with metal parts, strong tone is a good enough replacement for dark tone if you're using it already. So it works fine. But if you're not using dark tone, not using strong tone, then I would recommend dark tone. And then we move on to the soft tone. This is just for the hair, just to pick out those individual strands that it's got on the model, which you do highlight up quite a bit over later on, but for now it works fine. And then I come back to how much I realized I messed up here, and whip out the demonic yellow and try and just recover what I can from it. And the problem with yellow is it's such a translucent paint. All the yellows I've used are the same. It must be the actual pigment, not the paints I'm using, because my Citadel paints are just as bad for yellow. It's just a pain color to paint. But I started off originally trying to just do the highlights and realized it doesn't look right, so a bit further on you'll see me essentially just repainting the whole thing, because it goes on as a glaze anyway, so it would add a bit of depth, but it looks so bad at the moment. It got to this point I was thinking that I should just strip the model and respray it. But that's kind of the part of painting. You have to learn mistakes instead. So I'll do my best to try and fix it, and it doesn't turn out too bad, but it's not as good as I wanted it to be later on. And then I left that layer to dry and moved on to leather brown, just to highlight back up the edges of all the leather parts, just to make it pop that bit more against all those tones that are going through there now. And then we move on to highlighting the hair, which is just a case of getting a bit of gray matte beige on the brush and just touching it across the edges of the strands you want to have. And, well, it doesn't look too bad already, but once it's finished it looks so much nicer. The focus isn't too great on the camera at the moment. Then once it's finished with the hair, I move on to doing the eyes as the same colour, so I might as well work them out now. It's just two simple dots there. And then to finish the eyes, I used oak brown because it was on my palette already. But for some reason, it only went on one eye. The second eye just wouldn't take for some, and I have absolutely no idea why. But it turned out looking alright, as part of the wash just settled into the eye anyway. And they're so small that it's hard to tell. And we move on to all the metal parts, give it a bit of a highlight. For metal parts, it's not essential, but I find when you give it a wash, it dulls the shine. So if you go over it again, it just makes it shiny again, which is what you want from a metal part. And we move back on to the final attempt now to fix this yellow, as that layer is now dried, so I'll just try to cover it up again, make it, well, yellow again, instead of this really dirty looking colour that it's got. I think in the end it's not so bad, but yeah, just every time I look at it I just hate it when I see it. But there's not a lot I can do about it now. It's done. The other models are going to be done differently. Like the other 3 champions, I'll use no wash on those capes and do highlighted stages. as I feel like that will look better, and I'll show you that at the start of the next video as I haven't painted them yet. But then we move on to the black base, and considering it was a yellow base coat, I left the rim around the outside just so that I can just black circle on top, and that's it. And there we have it. That is the end of this champion. And here are some final images of how she looks. In the light, like, you gotta remember, these are tabletop minis, so you're looking at them from about 2 feet away. But I hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya.